Hello and welcome back to the Sad Man, where we talk about the good, the bad, and everything that made you sad from the previous week. And we are going to continue on our journey this week of breaking down every division in the NFL leading into this year's season. But before we do that, what a transfer window it's been. All right, we've got Premier League football kicking off this week. We had some games already happen, right? We saw a huge upset by Hull City, taking down Manchester United, which is hilarious for all of us that kind of consistently root for that. We're haters. Let's just say we're haters. We root for the downfall of those that have been put on a pedestal and have money to spend that others may not, or maybe are allowed to spend. Now, let's talk about that. Have money to spend or they're allowed to spend. These are weird concepts, right? Because we have the fair play rules in FIFA, and they just don't make a ton of sense, right? And I'm not advocating for a salary cap. I don't like that. I think players should be able to go where they want, make as much money as they can. These careers are not long-term, right? They're finite, and those that are lucky enough to play long-term should have the ability and right to play wherever they would like to. But the fact that this handicaps so many other teams that would like to or have the ability to spend money is the issue here, right? Let them spend the money. The problem is you're only letting a few teams spend this money, and these teams are able to stay at the top of the league because they're spending the money. Case in point, Villa has money, right? Boom. You can see it right behind me. There's our crest. Villa has money to spend, and they have great players they have developed and they have sold. But they're still a feeder team for the rest of the high-end Champions League and the Premier League. And it's becoming nonsense at this point with Rodgers moving on, and you've got Ollie Watkins linked to a move. You've got Konsa, who has moved on, and you have Emi Martinez, who's looking like he's going to go. You just have this team losing player after player after player after player. And yes, they have brought in some young talent, some talent that we won't be able to fully understand until we get them on the pitch together. But at this point in time, it's literally an entirely new squad that we haven't experienced yet. We don't know how they're going to play together. And it's hard when you still have Watkins, and Watkins is on the selling block. You want to play him. You want to put him in, but at the same time, do you want to sacrifice development time for some of the players that may actually be playing on the team this year if, in fact, we are looking to sell Ollie Watkins? This is an issue not just for Villa, but it's an issue for most of the teams in the Premier League. It's not so much a case of the haves and the have-nots as it is as there's only a few haves. So you really have to rely on development and understanding that the players that you love, the players that have carried your team throughout the years, the players that you're proud of, probably aren't going to be on your team if you are not allowed to spend, or if you don't have the money to spend. But that's not what I'm talking about today. Now, as we continue to move forward, granted, these teams become more and more marketable the larger they grow, and then they're allowed to spend more money. It's just, you can see where teams are frustrated because it's so difficult to get there. Because you have to find a skipper like Villa has in Unai that can continue to develop and push this young talent or this mismatch of new players together very early on. This is going to be an interesting season for Aston Villa, and much of what they're going to be capable of remains to be seen. But as of right now, you got to be a little worried. There's a lot of talent you're seeing, a lot of young talent, but what comes with that young talent is, okay, how long until we sell them? How long until they're not here anymore? Who are the players I'm allowed to fall in love with that will stick around, and who won't? Right? There's just that lingering thought process that exists within the Premier League. Now, we are excited, we're happy it's here, but that's just something to be talked about, right? Can we get to a place where we can have these hometown players that stick around, where we can afford to keep them around? If they would like to stick around, if they don't, understood, right? But if it's a money issue, how do we get over that hump? Now let's move on to the NFL. And let's talk this week about the North, the NFC North and the AFC North, right? So we've done the West, both AFC and NFC. We have done the East, both AFC and NFC. And well, we got to now we got to do the South. Or pardon me, we did the South last week. So now we're in the North. All right. This is our final step. And then we'll be able to talk about some fun stuff, like where do we see some sleepers? Because we've already lined it up, but where could we be wrong, right? Where might a team surprise us? Where are we not as confident in our assessment of these divisions as we might have been when we first started rolling out our division breakdown segments? Starting with the AFC North. Now, this division, I think, is going to have more parity than any other division. I think that this is anyone's division. I don't necessarily think the Steelers are out of it. They're older, right? But with that team, I mean, Aaron Rodgers, for all that he is, can always win you a game. I still think, even at this age, Aaron Rodgers has the talent and the ability to win you a football game. And that's nothing to sneeze at. That's something that exists within his DNA. And now he's back with Mike McCarthy. And it's not necessarily my favorite move ever, but there's got to be some comfortability factor there that's going to propel them in a direction where the Steelers think that they're better off with someone like this than they were with Mike Tomlin. I think it's going to go the other direction for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the Steelers are looking at a third place finish in their division, which is interesting, right? Because I've been reading and listening, and I see a lot of Ravens are going to be in this position. A lot of it. And I honestly just don't think so. I think the Ravens are going to show up and be much better than they were last year. I don't believe that what we saw from Lamar Jackson last year is going to be a vision of the future. What we saw from Lamar Jackson last year is going to be an aberration. All right. So we're talking about Pittsburgh here. That defense is still very strong. And I'm not going to be shocked if they find their way into the playoffs again. But I don't see them being able to keep up with the top of this division. You're more prone to injury as you get older. And this is an older team. They also don't have a lot of the firepower you need to excel forward. And the firepower they do have is volatile, and I don't know that it can be trusted. And I don't think Mike McCarthy, I don't agree with the front office. I don't think Mike McCarthy's the guy that's going to get it out of it. I think this might be a one-year pit stop for Mike McCarthy, and I think, obviously, Aaron Rodgers has already said, no matter what happens this year, this is it. It's over. And you've got to believe him, and it might be over sooner than he thinks with what we've seen out of Drew Aller. And I am not a Drew Aller guy. I think Drew Aller is not a good quarterback. I think you're going to get what you get from Drew Aller, and that is exactly what we saw at Penn State. Now, people are saying that I was wrong about Bo Nix because I still feel the same way about him, but I don't think so. I think he was blessed enough to end up with a Sean Payton, and that Sean Payton has helped him get to where he is now. So I don't think that the future is bright for Drew Aller in Pittsburgh. I think it's fun watching him in the preseason, but I think the preseason is a facade, as you've heard me say. Like, I'm not basing a lot of these rankings on the preseason outside of people that can get injured, right? The injuries in the preseason are what I would take into account when deciding where these teams are going to line up in their divisions. And that's simply because the injury is going to have significantly more impact on a team than the play we see in what is partial football. It's not total football. It's partial football. You're not playing the way you would be playing in the regular season and preseason, and you're not putting yourself at risk the way you may put yourself at risk in the regular season and the preseason. All that to say, like I said before, they're going to finish in third, and I think that's okay. I think Pittsburgh is one of those teams that has had enough we don't rebuild, reload seasons that it's time for a rebuild, and they're about to face one. The defense is on the back end. The offense has a few players that aren't on the back end, but a majority of these players are on the back end. And it's going to show. But it's not going to show as bad as the Cleveland Browns. Wow. Watson. I mean, is this going to go down as the worst transaction in NFL history? You already know the allegations against Deshaun Watson. I don't need to rehash them. We spent a good amount of time talking about that loser. But now he has the nerve to come out and say that the boos are personal and not about the play. No, you suck now. You're bad. You're a bad quarterback. You're not only a bad person, you're a bad football player. You should be thanking everything or anything that you believe in that you got that humongous contract from the Browns front office, from Haslam, who looks like a sterling idiot at this point in time. Because you have dead weight in Watson. You drafted 2 quarterbacks, which some people are now trying to spin it as good job in bringing in 2 quarterbacks, and Dylan Gabriel and Sanders, but neither one of them is going to be anything. So 2 wasted picks there. And you're no longer with the best player maybe in franchise history in Myles Garrett, as he's moved on to the Los Angeles Rams. This team's a train wreck, and we're going to see it. There's a very real shot at this team being the worst team in the league. And it's weird that odds makers don't have them as that. Yeah, they've got a running back. Okay. Got maybe a wide receiver, good young tight end, right? But that's it. So how do we not have this team competing for the bottom spot in the NFL? How do we not have this team competing for the first overall draft pick? This is where we're at with the Cleveland Browns. They're just a nothing franchise. And I'm a Raiders fan, and I'm saying that. The Cleveland Browns, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to be fourth forever? Forever? Because there's no upside. I don't see any upside to this team. I don't. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. And I think history would support that argument. The Cleveland Browns are one of the sorriest franchises to ever exist. Both the new franchise and the pre-Baltimore Ravens Cleveland Browns. So they're going to finish in fourth. And they're going to be competing for the first overall pick. Now, let's talk about the top of this division. Let's talk about your Baltimore Ravens and your Cincinnati Bengals. I already said, I think that was an aberration. I think that Baltimore is going to have a refreshed outlook on this NFL season under a new head coach. I think Lamar is going to go out and he's going to prove to everyone that I'm absolutely correct, that this is just a random occurrence. This is not what he is now. He is still an MVP level quarterback that's going to go out and make things happen. And because he is that, I've got Baltimore climbing their way back into first in this division. And I don't think it's without a fight, though. I do think Cincinnati's back. I think that Joe Burrow is finally fully healthy again. And we saw what he was able to do in a fully healthy season. He took that team, now we have some controversy in that Raiders playoff game, but he took that team to a Super Bowl, and they almost won that Super Bowl. He almost took away Sean McVay's only Super Bowl. Joe Burrow is the real deal. When he's on, he is on. And I just don't see a world where this team doesn't make the playoffs when they're fully healthy. Behind Joe Burrow and that offense, and it's actually quietly an improved defensive team on paper. They're right up there with the Baltimore Ravens. I think this division is decided by 1 or 2 games. But again, we got Baltimore finishing first. We got Cincinnati and that Bengals offense finishing in second. Steelers in third. And of course, the Cleveland Browns in a very, very familiar spot in fourth. NFC North. Now, this division may be the best division in football. But let's start in fourth place. In fourth place, we've got the Minnesota Vikings. And I like KOC. I really do like KOC. I think he is really good at his job. I think Justin Jefferson is phenomenal. I think Addison is a great second option. I think this team is fun and good, but they have no quarterback. I don't know. We'll see if Kyler Murray can turn off the Call of Duty and lead a team in a very, very, very tough division. But I just don't think this is the case. And that defense has had a total overhaul. They're not going to be the defense we've seen out of Minnesota the last 10 years. And this is a problem because for everything that went on in Minnesota, they had a good defense. They had a decent defense. And I just don't think that's going to be the case this year. And that's asking a lot of this offense. That's asking a lot of quarterback Kyler Murray. And you're just not going to be able to overcome these things. You're just not going to be able to overcome in this division having to compete with 3 of the best teams in the NFL, and have a new quarterback and a defense that's going to get worse So I got them finishing in 4th in their division. Now, this is where it gets tough. This is where it gets tough because, be it not for injury, the Green Bay Packers may have been the best team in the NFL last year. And we never got to see that. We never got to see what Love would do with a full complement of targets. We didn't get to see what this Packers team could do with all of their defense healthy. We didn't get to see what this team at full strength was going to be capable of as it found its footing. And I think that this year we do. And I think this year we have the Green Bay Packers in first place in their division. We think that they supplant the Bears and they move into where we had them almost all of last year until the injuries hit, first in their division in the NFC North. And that is because I think Jordan Love has a great season this year, fantastic season. He's a slow starter, kind of like Joe Burrow. And I want to see him come out of the gates firing. I want to see this offense come out of the gates firing. And this is a big season for LaFleur, too. It's a huge season for LaFleur. So we need him to put on his coaching hat and really put this team in a position to get Jordan Love where he needs to be in midseason form right away. But I do have the Green Bay Packers finishing in first in the NFC North. And then the Detroit Lions are looking for a bounce back year under Campbell, and Campbell's looking for a bounce back year. Just like LaFleur. LaFleur is having a big season this year. So is Campbell. Campbell, without Johnson, showed that maybe he's not the reason the Lions were successful. And I think that that's going to weigh on him, and he's going to want to come out and show that he is a major reason why the Lions had the turnaround they had. And I think Jared Goff has has something to prove. I think Gibbs has something to prove now that he is the only premier back in that backfield. And then St. Brown wants to show that he is the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I think he can compete for that. I do. I think he's very good. But everything has to come together. They get Laporta back. This team is a good football team. I think the defense is going to be fine. The defense will be good to go this year. But does that mean they finish in second? I think so. I think I've got the Detroit Lions in second place in the NFC North. And I know that's a lot to ask from the Detroit Lions, but I think that this team is going to have a major bounce back year. And I think that we're going to see a drop off from that third team in the division, the Chicago Bears. Caleb Williams, Madden curse, like a collision course. I don't know what to say. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't know that the NFL is not going to catch up to Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears offense. I think that last year was fantastic, and last year was the year they should have done it. I think we've got a season incoming, much like we saw out of the Washington Commanders last year. I think the Chicago Bears had a majorly improved season last year under their head coach. I don't think this is going to, again, just like the Steelers, mean that they're not going to make the playoffs, but I just don't think they're going to be the team you saw last year. Also, they won a lot of close games last year, which is going to be a tough barometer to measure what their success is going to look like this year. They weren't able to get it done. I don't have them as one of the best teams in the NFC this year. I like the Chicago Bears. I think they are an exciting team, and I think they can be a fun team, but I don't think that they're going to have that same season that they had last year. They've got a tougher schedule. They're in the toughest division in the NFL, like I said, in this NFC North division, and the NFL catches up. The NFL doesn't just let you sit at the top. The NFL learns, adapts, and adjusts to what you're good at. And that's what we're going to see this year as it pertains to the Chicago Bears. They're going to have better film on what Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams do together. They're going to have better film on what this team was able to do to be successful, and they're going to try to end that. They're going to try to stop that because these coaches and these teams take pride in themselves as well. So that is our breakdown of the NFC North. We've got Packers, Lions, Bears, oh my, all the way down to the Vikings, and Kyler Murray finishing in fourth, which, sorry to say, a lot of that is due to that quarterback situation in Minnesota and that defense just not being what it has been in the past. This has been The Sad Fan. We thank you for joining us each and every week, and we will see you next time.